I'd like to discuss my effigy-like portfolio with you now. I believe I've mostly tried to chase a human spirit of some sort with my portfolio. If anything, that would be the overarching theme. That and the dissolution of self, of body, of material, of atmosphere. I think I should say less now, and we'll get right into the first work. It's number one. This piece here, this iron piece thing here, doesn't really have a title. So what exactly is this painting? It is just a depiction of how I see bodies and soul. I honestly don't know where one begins and one ends. I have no real perception of any of that. And it's something I find deeply fascinating. I myself don't really have any sense of my body, and I definitely don't feel I belong in it in any shape, sense, or form. I'm just some vague, interconnected conjugation of thought and reaction, really. And I kind of tried depicting my feeling towards, at least, my bodily autonomy and sense of self in some sort of vessel. It's not a self-depiction of sorts, it is a depiction of all bodies in one, really. I tried bringing this painting to form through fading in and out of this horizon. A silhouette where edge and ether meet. I feel I've done quite well depicting this, and I do feel it speaks for itself to quite a strong degree. I do, however, concede that there is more to delve into here, and I can't really be happy with just stopping here. Taking this idea of ether to its end, or to more interesting scenarios with more interesting compositions, is a thought which I believe has fruit to bear. Due to this, I immediately after began painting a second version. This leg piece thingy once again has another title. This version was very interconnected visually and thematically to the first painting. It does a worse job at what I was intending to do, mostly due to the lack of atmosphere in the top half of the painting, and not really giving this painting a focal point was also a mistake, I believe. However, I've done the best I could, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out, for I did give myself very little time, and it is the final piece I created before sending my application in for review in mid-March. My feelings stay true to the fact that I think there's still more to explore here, and it's something I still will be exploring. These paintings are very heavily worked on. They are a result of a long line of thought and emotion. This next one is a little different. This came but from a singular moment in time, where emotion and shame and blame came and intersected upon me, for I had seriously damaged a friendship of mine, which up until that point had been very fruitful and fulfilling. This painting was made in haste. I finished it in only about 2 days, and again, usually I reflect very deeply on an idea, and I only begin painting once the idea is so ripe that it's practically ready to fall off the tree. But with this creation there was none of that. None at all. It took me still weeks and months, maybe even to begin understanding what had occurred back in January. Something deep needed out, and needed out fast. These sort of paintings where things need to go out fast can be really fucking scary. It's very honest, and it's a very clear depiction of an extremely pungent emotion which I'd felt. There's no romanticism, or deeper meaning, or something to learn from. It teaches nothing. It simply is. Yet, although I myself find this painting and this emotional painting style quite tough sometimes, I can still see it for what it is. One thing I would have loved to have done is to make it a little less Egon Schiele. He's a great inspiration of mine. However, I wish his art to stay as an inspiration, and I wonder what this painting would have looked like if I further rendered the kitchen in which I was sitting when I took their initial reference picture. Those last 3 paintings you saw were made within the last 3 months or so, and I feel quite well represent the ideas I wish to work on and hammer away on. But of course, these ideas and feelings didn't materialize out of nowhere. They came from a long line of underlying feeling and already interesting themes that I'd worked on in the past. So I'll show you them. So number 1 started off as a simple, horrible self-portrait. It was a day in which I clearly didn't see myself as very attractive, so I drew myself as this horrible and ugly bastard with a to-be lead, went on a 15-minute pish walk, and came back to the drawing and thought to myself, holy shit, I made something cool. I didn't want to dwell on the painting too much longer, I kind of wanted to get onto something new, so I painted for about 30 minutes, and due to this hasty and speedy and ugly art style, I had actually made something I really enjoyed. It was fresh, the brushstrokes were clean, you could see there was emotion by there was feeling. I mean, obviously these are inspired again by just lack of anything behind the eyes. I do think the eyes take away a little bit from the painting nowadays, but this feeling of, this is just a body I'm looking at, there's no soul behind this, was something which I wanted to try and create. But I believe I could have still done that and had rendered the eyes as well. I was quite proud of myself for a while. So these are maybe the only works that I've signed in this series, this portfolio. And I now see I can do more, so I wish I had maybe not signed it, and doesn't matter. I eventually moved on to something with more theme, with more thematics. I felt there was more to look for here, so I went on to these two. Utterly Unmatched is another emotion-first painting, and don't get me wrong, I don't dislike emotion-first paintings. It's always quite scary, to be honest, showcasing these very vulnerable moments of sorts, but I'm more fine with this one, for this simply came out of a dating phase ending, and it was a great place to try and think through everything that happened and what could have changed and what was different, but in the end it wasn't that deep. It was more just me being quite disappointed that it hadn't worked out for the umpteenth time. I separated this big fuck off piece of paper in half and felt two separate pieces lie back to back as some sort of symbolism of, just clearly two pieces of the puzzle, they're not meant to connect here. And I thought that was cute. I was quite proud of this work. With these 6 pieces, found this it doesn't really matter approach, where I was just messy and fucked around a bit. But I kind of felt that there should be more to painting than just this fast, hasty approach. So I ended up creating these paintings. I was also quite unhappy with my brushstroke, and I wanted to delve deeper into the brushstrokes which I had already tried and used in these previous 6. These 3 paintings come at the end of a long line of improvisational painting, where I painted on top of a thickly layered background where frame combined with center, and I truly, really like these paintings. The only thing I have to complain about is that I could have done more of the frame. I did end up shifting it around a little, but I could have done so much more than what it ended up being here. I can still go and do that if I like. And as I truly do utterly love this improvisational type of painting, even to this day, where you get to step back and get a new look, turning it on its head, being brave with what I'm doing and attempting something new each time, I ended up sort of creating some of my best pieces by just a process which I found and I utterly adored, where whatever emotion you have on the day, you just bring onto canvas. It can be something silly, it can be fun, it can be light, it can be fluffy, it can be more thought through, it can be more complex, it can be whatever. It is great. But I kind of have found myself wanting to once again go more into thematics with this kind of style. As with the White Eye portraits and then into Utterly Unmatched, I think there's a similar sort of progression there that I've not yet found. I believe there is still space upwards there. I have very much found myself struggling to find some thematics which I can trust myself to bring into this sort of style, as the thematics I usually tend to think about are naturalistic of some sort, and I'm quite afraid of trying to simplify something down into these great brushstrokes, as I feel the message would maybe get lost there. But I realise this fear is probably unjust, and I just need to try. I did try once, however, to get this combination of semi-abstract and semi-realistic at the same time, and I feel I've only succeeded once, and it's actually a painting I started way back in 2024. It's Blanketed by Nature. Now, I initially wrote up a long block of text to describe my thoughts and feelings on this piece, but in all honesty, I think I'd like to keep the details of that private for now. I believe this is my favourite piece I've ever made, and not because it's perfect. I'd do about 5,000 things differently nowadays, but because of what the process taught me and how the concept around this painting truly changed me as a person, especially regarding my thoughts and feelings towards interconnectivity, our bodies, spirituality, futility, the butterfly effect, and who we truly are. It's truly that which I've always set out to create. This human spirit, which I've always found so very enchanting. I think a reason why I've not been able to retouch into this is just because of fear. Fear of messing up, fear of making something I wish to be beautiful ugly, something ugly which turns out boring. And I don't think fear should hold me back. Of all things, it shouldn't be fear. In due time, I believe I will return to something semi-stylistic to this, maybe again more reduced. That remains to be seen, but as it works in a portfolio, I believe you can tell I had fun in this. You can see I used about 500 different techniques, and I think they come across quite harmonious. Some of the fun things I really love about this painting are some of the runny spots of paint, some of the blending I've done in the absolute smallest parts, that little orange dot under the chin, the white webbing on the right, the tiny little dots to represent little freckles and just change of colour on the face. I like it. It's nice. God Spirals were 2 hasty pieces that I created just after having finished Blanketed by Nature because I was not quite done experimenting with the spirals, which I added in the top right. And I didn't initially have a name for these spirals, and I'll make it clear I'm not religious, but God Spirals represented quite well what they meant to me, to a certain degree anyway. 2 little prints. The floaty lady prints, they don't have a name again. The idea of melting into the background, something I've wanted to explore about 1,000 times, I explore here again. The initial reference picture was straight taken out of an old French master's painting, and I just thought the pose was quite nice, so I adapted it into this. I do, however, wish I'd done maybe a little more. I think making it larger isn't correct. I've kind of already done that with Blanketed by Nature. And, it's turned out okay. I wish I could say more to this. I like the spikes. Right. The first oil paintings I completed after Blanketed by Nature, and my first real oil pieces, to be honest. And you can tell I hadn't used oils much before this. In the first picture you can see I'm playing around with the medium here and there, but I was seriously struggling to get the effect I wanted. I was painting in this really dry, I'd describe it as like staccato fashion, where I'd maybe add 30 brushstrokes a day before waiting for everything to dry. And it wasn't really something I enjoyed doing. It was very much the way I paint acrylics, just to a lesser degree, because I had to wait for everything to dry before I added anything on top. However, I delved a little deeper, and as you can see, in the bottom half I used a fuck ton of medium to get those delicious little spirals. Something which, yes, I was of course still exploring, hooray! And the picture of Annabelle is a painting I never finished, but I thought I'd include it anyway for, I think there's some interesting ideas, and I think you can tell there's some artistic growth coming after having worked on the first painting. Again, dissolution of our mortal flesh, a common theme. I feel both paintings are better in concept than in practice. I do feel the intent of the paintings was in fact brought across quite well, but I just didn't really materialise all of my thoughts that I did have, but I did try. Time for this little stinker. Sorry if you followed me before. This video may as well be the only painting you know me for, which is absolutely great. This little cat is very cute after all. And if you can tell, my feelings have changed a bit towards this project since I first finished it. I was, at the time, quite blindly proud of this painting for what it had achieved, because I really did manage to get some good atmosphere and I used some great colour. I seriously felt that I finally understood oil as a medium and felt rewarding, and I wanted to showcase that. And now I'm bored of this painting. It sort of falls into the realm of kitsch, and it's a great painting, visually speaking, but thematically I'm sort of utterly bored by it. I love Joey, he has this great resting bitch face, but I wish mayhaps I'd just simply painted the room instead. It might have been more interesting that way. This brushstroke technique I developed is very strong, and it's I really like it, but it's not as dynamic and momentous as some of my abstract improvisations. But it's fun. And each brushstroke sort of has its own character. So yeah, I'm very split on this work. I very nearly didn't include it in my portfolio, but a friend of mine, Nina, found it so great that she utterly encouraged me to put it in, no matter what. So yes, thanks to her, we're here talking about this little guy again. That's, rather here nor now. I don't want to think about what I would have done differently, but rather what I could do now. I feel as though my dynamic and fun brushwork in my abstract compositions can seriously lend themselves well to these sort of naturalistic paintings. Maybe because the larger the brushstroke is, the more presence it tends to ask for. It could be the foreground of the subject, an indication of someone lying in bed perhaps, shown through free strokes, and everything else around them is rendered in these little sparks. We'll see. I mean, you can tell with this painting though, I tried the sort of dissolving of body, but more a dissolving of colour. And I mean, it's interesting. I'm not going to explore it much further, and that's kind of why I would have left it out if it hadn't been for Nina, because I don't feel it comes across very well to show something that you're not going to be working towards much more often. So yeah, for these little atmospheric leaf paintings, and there's not too much to say about these bad boys, except for this first one is the first time I feel I combined great big brush strokes with these small little sparks, although I do love it. It's, I mean, a picture of a tree, it's blending in with the horizon, it's this dissolution of foreground and background. This second one is, thematically similar, but a bit boring, and I think you can tell it's kind of clearly overworked. It is, I mean, these two are kind of filler. I mean, the ivy painting only became fun after I added these big fuck-off strokes in the top right, which is weird, because I usually only add brush strokes of that scale in the very beginning, and then I work around them in the end. So I think great atmosphere, I think this dissolution of sorts is great, and I think it's a great exercise, but it's not something I'm going to pursue much in the future. I think I again want to do more thematically meaningful things, and this is kind of the right thing. So we're nearing the end of the portfolio now, we're in the last 10 or so, and I thought I'd reintroduce these abstract paintings. I left away the border this time around, and I just let them be abstract little improvisations. And it's the first time I feel I've managed to get these delusions into abstraction in oil format. There's not much else to say about these bad boys. I wish the red and green one I'd maybe tried more with my colour. I mean, it's already quite colourful, but there's no main colour, I feel. It's sort of all got the same weight. Right, now, time for my little funky self-portraits. Back when I had a mustache, you might have seen earlier, I had self-portrait with a mustache as well. Fell off in a car accident. Don't have it anymore. I feel much better. I get to drink water without drowning myself afterwards. It's lovely. The copper one, I explored quite a bit of medium, had great fun. Again, made myself almost invisible, I feel. I'm part of the background to a great degree. I think I could have gone further with it, but it's good fun. And the second one, I added my palette to my hair. I just let it off and wisp off, and I mixed my paint straight out of it. It was good fun. Probably not something I'm going to explore too much deeper with the palette on the painting, but it was good fun. And right, time for these two little prints. I've sort of had to add this one. It's one of my oldest works. It is the oldest work I have in here, and I feel it's a good exploration into texture. I mean, I've always had an exploration into texture to a certain degree, but as this is in a different medium, I feel you can see there's more accentuation of it here, and it's quite nice. I like the hair, I like the background. I'm not too big on the shape of the face and such, but that is what it is. But the second print, it's not a print, it's when you like cut into plastic. Anyway, that I've included it for the spiral theme. Now the spiral clouds are quite fun, I find, and these spirals are something I've been doing a lot on my sketchbooks. Now, my sketchbooks are a separate part of my portfolio, but they are included as well, of course, and they're great fun. I don't know what it is about the form I find so endearing and exciting, and something that I just want to engage with constantly. It's such a multifaceted fishhook shape, and I adore it. There's not much more to say to it. It's great exploration, and it's something I'm doing quite a lot of right now. And to end off portfolio, we've got my self-portraits. They're quite simple. It was great fun to work around these transparent little creatures. Not much more to say about these guys. Great exploration of medium. I love painting on ink. The great texture on the brush. And I'm happy with these. Now time for the final debrief. Now, how do I feel about my entire portfolio, and what does the future look like? Where do I go from here? What if I don't get accepted, and what if I do? And let's start with that final point, shall we? Be doing the same thing. I love human expression. It's something I'm enamored with in all shapes and forms. I love this little microcosm of soul we have here on Earth, and it's something I want to pursue and enjoy and partake in, whichever way that may crystallize. I don't know, but it's going to be followed. Assuming I don't get accepted, which is not unlikely in all reality, I'll just keep on creating and consuming art. It's what I want to be doing with my time here on this, in the grand scheme of things, awfully small, semi-glossy, mostly matte marble, which we inhabit. Nothing's going to change that. I'm not sure where my paintings will be going from here on out, truth be told. I'm currently enjoying drawing in my sketchbook quite a bit, so maybe things will get more simplistic with a greater focus on line work, or more concentrated. I'm not sure. Occasionally, I get very horrified at all which is around us, and I create something like the arm thingy. Sometimes I enjoy the most beautiful things too. I don't truly know where I stand in all of this. I think the world is too complex to truly sit in one lane and only do one thing there. Overall, I'd give my portfolio a 6.5 out of 10. I feel as though I have quite a cohesive collection of works, both stylistically and thematically. I do wish some themes and ideas were delved into a little deeper, back when I was interested in them, such as Utterly Unmatched and The Floating Lady Prince, for example. I feel you can get a good sense of who I am, and what I believe in, and what I'm scared of. And I think you can also get a good sense I'm still undecided on certain things in life, and that I sometimes just take things simply as much as they are, as I question things to the highest degree. I'm not sure if it comes across well that I'm so split, but this isn't something I can even readily avoid. This is just simply me. My portfolio acts as effigy. I have been no more than a medium, as it were.